Welcome to the channel. Today I will tell you about the terrible earthquake in Japan. Enjoy your viewing. On January 17, 1995, an earthquake of magnitude 7.3 on the Richter scale occurred in the west of the largest Japanese island of Honshu near the port city of Kobe. Its epicenter was the northern part of Awaji Island. The center was located at a depth of about 16 kilometers. The earthquake started at 5:46 a.m. local time and lasted only 20 seconds. But it was enough to turn the flourishing city into a pile of stone, metal, and plastic debris. Almost immediately, fires broke out in various districts of Kobe, but their extinguishing was hampered by blocked streets and damaged water supply. Please like this video and subscribe to this new channel, and you will see many more interesting and useful things. The earthquake was one of the most devastating in the country's history, and the Japanese government decided to name the disaster the Great Hanshin Awaji Earthquake. As a result of the rampant disaster, more than 6.4 thousand people died. More than 40,000 people were injured. According to a study by the Japanese Ministry of Health, 60% of the people who died in Kobe were aged 60 years or older. About 105,000 buildings were destroyed and more than 144,000 houses were damaged. 19,000 educational institutions, 72,000 roads, 330 bridges, and other infrastructure facilities were destroyed. The city of Kobe suffered the most, with more than 4,500 people killed, 14,000 injured, and more than 120,000 structures destroyed. The total damage caused by the earthquake amounted to 9.9 billion yen, which was almost 10% of the national budget. It took 3 months to rebuild the city, and 7 months after the emergency, the railroad was restored. 8 million tons of waste generated by the disaster were disposed of. The amount of donations from all over the country amounted to about 179.3 billion yen. The Kobe earthquake showed how vulnerable the country was to such disasters. Although most of the buildings built according to the new building regulations withstood the earthquake, many others, especially the old wooden framed houses, were destroyed. The transport network was completely paralyzed, as well as the slow and ineffective response of the authorities to natural disasters. After the earthquake, roads, bridges, and buildings were reinforced in case of a new impact, and the national government reviewed its disaster response policy. On January 18, 2005, the World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, dedicated to the 10th anniversary of the earthquake, was opened in the Japanese city of Kobe under the auspices of the United Nations. It adopted the Hyogo Declaration, which reflected the general opinion of all participants in the international forum that the world community had accumulated extensive experience in disaster management during the United Nations International Decade for Disaster Risk Reduction 1990-1999, which later developed into an indefinite international strategy. The Hyogo Framework for Action (HPA) for 2005 to 2015 was also approved by the conference delegates, which outlined 5 priority areas of action, ensuring that disaster risk reduction is a national and local priority with a strong institutional framework for implementation, identifying, assessing, and monitoring disaster risk factors, and improving early warning, using knowledge, innovative solutions, and education to create a safe environment and counteraction capacity at all levels, reducing underlying risk factors, enhance disaster preparedness for effective response at all levels. During the implementation of the CPA, countries and other stakeholders have made progress in disaster risk reduction at the local, national, regional, and international levels, which has contributed to reducing deaths from certain hazards. However, its implementation process has revealed a number of gaps in addressing disaster risk factors, setting goals and priorities for action, strengthening disaster response capacities at all levels, and providing appropriate means of implementation. To address these gaps, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 was adopted on March 18, 2015 in Sendai, Japan, at the Regular World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, which ensures continuity of the work done by states and other stakeholders within the framework of the CPA. The new program defines 7 goals that relate to a significant reduction in deaths from earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and other natural disasters by 2030. The number of people affected in general, reduction of economic losses, etc. In addition, the Sendai framework covers man-made hazards in addition to natural hazards, which distinguishes it from its predecessor, the Hyogo framework. These man-made hazards include chemical or industrial hazards, as well as radiological, nuclear, biological, etc. The Kobe Luminary Festival is held annually in memory of the victims of the 1995 earthquake in Kobe. It was first held 11 months after the tragedy. In 2024, the event was held for the 29th time from January 19th to 28th, with almost 2.3 million people attending. In 2025, the 30th anniversary festival will be held from January 24th to February 2nd. Its theme, 30 Years of Light, Ever Shining Hope, is intended not only to remind the younger generation of the devastating earthquake, but also to convey a sense of hope for the future, which the art of light gave to the residents of the then not fully restored city.